We are back. Let me rephrase that. No, we are back on the Falcons Audible, presented by AT&T. And fellas, it has been too long.
See you, brother.
It has been too long.
Yes, sir.
The boys are back in town. I feel like I've said that before, but guess what? I'm going to say it again. We back in town because guess what? Football is back, baby.
Let's go.
Yes, training camps have opened, and yes, that means you get the three of us back. And guess what? You're going to get us on a much more regular basis now because, fellas, we got plenty to talk about now. We always try to find things in the offseason. I swear every football outlet, every media outlet tries to find a story to just make a 30-minute show in the offseason.
No doubt.
Guess what? We don't need to make a show out of something. We got plenty to make a show out of. So, we are back. We're going to be here for, let's call it 20 to 30 minutes. I say to 30 because sometimes the fellas get a little long-winded because they're passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, ours can go, man. You know
By the way, if it's been a while and you haven't seen us before, or I don't know how you could forget who this is. That's DJ Shockley. That's Dave Archer. I'm Derek Rackley. This is the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T, and we are back for the 2024 season because training camp is open. Fellas, before we get into the action on the field, some people like to know what football players do in the offseason. What do former football players now in the broadcasting industry do in the offseason? One quick cool thing you did this offseason.
Took our family to Mexico. We had a nice family vacay in Mexico and had a good time. And, you know, I got a tan. Can't you tell? Not really.
No, you look the same. You look the same.
Look the same. Yeah. No, it was good, man. We had a good little vacay, got away, and got to relax.
Need that
R&R.
R&R.
A good time. Need that.
All right, Dave, what about you?
Yeah, same deal. We went to the beach, though. You know, that's a different tax bracket.
No,
you're going down to Mexico.
First off, we checked to see how much it cost to go to Florida. It was the same amount to go to Mexico. So we said, we're going to do that.
I went down to test the riptide down off of the Florida coast there. So we did that. Ball, had a great time, and that was our big excursion for this offseason.
Okay, good.
You?
Well, I guess you could say I took a trip, but I don't take vacations in the summertime because I have daughters that play softball.
Yeah.
And so my summers are softball travel.
No
so
doubt.
I did take trips to Florida, to Kansas City, to Colorado, and to California. But I think I actually saw the water maybe 2 days out of all those trips.
Yeah.
Water bottles,
hey,
but
that's what we do.
If people don't know, you go hear in years, my man Rax got a daughter that's nasty in softball.
Good little
That's
ball
all I'm gonna
player.
say.
Good
That's
little
all I'm
ball
gonna
player.
say.
Maybe we'll end up talking about it in a month or a
Yeah.
month and a half or 2 months or something like that. Briefly. But I know you're here because you want to hear about NFL action. You want to hear about the Falcons. You want to hear a little bit about training camp as it is opened in 2024. So, guys, excited?
Yes,
excited
sir.
we're back?
Yeah.
Excited is a little different for us because I don't know how you guys were. I don't know if I was really excited about training camp. Like, I was always excited for the season to start, but training camp is kind of a different level. I know things have changed, like the training camp that we have on the field. When I do this, the Falcons practice literally like right back here.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like I'm like trying to massage Dave's heads or anything. They practice right back there. It's changed a little bit, but like, I don't know about you, DJ. Did you truly get excited for training camp? Or were you like, dude, it's going to be a grind?
See, for me, it was different than maybe you guys because you guys had a solidified position when you came into camp. For me, every year, I'm fighting for my job.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for my life. So I was excited to go to camp. I was excited to show off, you know, my abilities and whatever it could be. So, yeah, it still was thought of as a grind. And I remember walking out of – I'm going to point back here because that's what the field is, like Rack says. But walking out of the meeting room at 10:45, walking over to the dorms that are built over here and laying down for a couple hours, getting right back up doing it again. So those are the grind of training camp. That is not the grind anymore that they go through.
Exactly.
But, I look forward to it. I was excited for it because it was an opportunity for me to do something that I always love, which is playing in the National Football League. A lot of people don't get that chance, so I was excited every time I got.
Man, I was so excited to get to camp. I was tired of running and lifting weights and all that kind of – hey, we get to play football now after doing all that kind of stuff in the offseason. We didn't have all the OTAs. We had some mini camps here and there. These guys, it kind of is 24/7, 365 for these guys. They got a couple of weeks off after OTAs. This last was in June, mid-June. They kind of took off, and then they were done for about 3 or 4 weeks before they came back for camp. So a little bit different there. But, the games, I mean, that's what we do this for, is for the games. you realize when you get to camp, now we're close to the games, and so you're excited about that, and excited about coming together with your teammates.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably not as much as a physical grind or that thought of like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. It's changed a lot more, right? Like they're not doing as much in pads. They're not on the field as much as what they used to when we were in, even when you were there, DJ, like the rules were different, right? Yeah. And this is just kind of the landscape that we live in now. They're trying to keep guys a little bit more fresh, try to keep them healthy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as far as this Falcons group gets into the preseason, into the games. How much will we see guys like Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix when we get into the preseason? Because it's that gentle balance between getting them sharp but making sure they get to the regular season healthy and ready to go. Yeah. So, guys, let's talk about this camp. There's been so many changes, as there is every single year, but more importantly with this team here, we got a new head coach, you got a new quarterback coming in. So those two things right there, you got plenty of transition going on. So with these new coaches, you guys have had a chance to probably be around them more than myself and the average person. What are some of the challenges, DJ, that you see that this coaching staff and some of these new players are going to have to kind of work through and meld together in order to kind of start the season off on the right foot?
I think you pointed it out, obviously having a lot of different pieces in a lot of different places. And when we came into this offseason, you knew there were a lot of returning pieces that you felt good about. But then we also talk about having a new head coach, a new OC, a new defensive coordinator, a new scheme on both sides of the ball, and adding free agents. Adding a new quarterback to the mix makes everything different regardless of who is returning, because you have a different guy who is making those calls and putting the ball in places they need to be. I think the biggest thing is creating that, and it's a cliche, but building that chemistry on all three phases of the game. There are changes in the kickoff rules, and you got to figure out how you're going to do that. There are a lot of things that you got to think about as far as strategy-wise with that third phase, which a lot of people don't talk about. But then offensively, you're talking about adding 3 new receivers, adding another tight end. Your backs are 2 guys that you absolutely want to find ways to get the football to, and talk about using Bijan in multiple ways, using Kyle. But then also you got a quarterback who's coming off an injury. So it's been good that he's been involved in the entire offseason program. It's been good that he's been able to go through camp and they've had time on task. But there's nothing like building that during training camp. And I think that's probably the hardest thing, is understanding what each and every guy needs when they're practicing, what each guy needs when you're watching film. And that goes for both sides of the ball. And then you have the complementary part of it, of being able to speak the same language with your coaches. You got some new coaches in here as well. So it's like, okay, how do I mesh the player part of it with the coaching part of it, and then come on the field and bring it all together? So it's a cliche term, but I think it's the number one thing that you have to do, is build that cohesion and chemistry within the players and the coaches, and how you go about your business, especially during training camp.
Guys, during camp, when we say camp, we're talking about OTAs, mini camps. Early on, when you have a new coaching staff, not a lot of new personnel, there's generally installation, and they have the ability probably to go a little bit slower, right? They've got to get rookies up to speed. They've got to get free agents up to speed on the new lingo. Granted, in the NFL, pretty much everybody runs the same offense, same defense, same plays, but it's called something completely different. Right. So you got to get the new terminology. But Arch, is it fair to say that once they get to training camp, everything has got to move a little bit faster? Because you've already installed once, number one. They're going to install again during training camp. They're probably going to do everything that they did back during OTAs, but it's like their expectation level is, we've already learned this, you guys know this, and now we have to build on top of it. That stuff has to accelerate a little bit more now, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because you're obviously closer to having to do it for real. But I think I heard Zach Robinson talk about it in his presser this week. He talked about how they hit the ground running when they got to camp, because they had such good OTAs, and guys did such a great job of focusing on what they needed to do, both in all 3 phases as Shock went through, that they got here and it wasn't, okay, let's go back and let's reinstall it. They hit the ground running and they took off to where they maybe reviewed a little bit, maybe day 1, day 2, but they've moved on to where that stuff now is in the bank and they've moved forward. So to your point, I don't have to go back and revisit, which accelerates and maybe puts me further down the road than maybe you thought. The newness, as you guys have talked about, is the biggest issue with everything trying to come together and trying to meld all that together. Some of the positives are your entire offensive line is intact. You've got guys like Jesse Bates and Caden Ellis and Grady Jarrett that are on your defensive side. So the leadership, some of the old heads, if you will, some of those guys are young guys. Now Grady's going in his 10th season, but you've got some guys that there's some continuity. Even though there's some newness, there's some continuity, especially along the offensive line, which I think is a huge positive. So as much as we're trying to meld new and language and different personalities, there's also some things you can lean on. And that offensive line, those three guys on that defensive side of the football are some of those things.
Let's stay on the offense here, Arch, and I'm going to come right back to you because the last 2 years that us three have been sitting in this room kind of previewing the season, we've done it with quarterbacks that we would probably say are more on the mobile side, right? Marcus Mariota, knowing that one of his traits was to be able to get outside the pocket. Even last year with Desmond Ridder, we came into it saying this guy's got a little bit more mobility than we've seen in a Matt Ryan and some of the other quarterbacks in the past. That's going to change this year. So, Arch, I want to ask you, now that we're going to have Kirk Cousins at the helm, we know we still got two dynamic running backs. We still got a couple of pass weapons that we've seen in the past, but like DJ said, there's a lot of new wide receivers on this team. Can you put your finger on what type of offense Falcons fans are going to see out on the field this year, knowing that we're going to have a quarterback that's more stay in the pocket, get the ball out of his hands, and operate on timing?
Well, it's certainly going to be based on making sure he distributes the football. We're not looking for the athleticism from the quarterback, as you just talked about. So when Raw talked about a guy that can process pre-snap, a guy that can process in his first couple of steps to drop and get the ball out, you mentioned the key part. The ball's coming out on time.
Yeah.
You're not going to see Kurt holding the football. Some of it has to do with he doesn't want the ball. He can't do anything with it if he can't get it out to guys. But I think that's what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a number of weapons spread out across the field, either horizontally and vertically, and then the ball coming out on time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. And then implement a run game that I think is going to be far better than maybe they had in L.A. Even though the young kid out there ran for over 1,000 yards, had a nice season, I think these two backs he's got. So I think you're still going to see the run game. They've acquired some talent that's going to allow them to continue to do that. But, oh, my goodness, they've got guys on the perimeter that now can really threaten you from a creativity standpoint. Zach Robinson's got to be rubbing his hands together. I talk again, referencing his conversation in his presser. He said, we're not going to show anything during the preseason, but he's got stuff on his board he's chomping at the bit to get to, and so he's going to be able to do that. But I think you're going to see ball come out on time. You're still going to see run and pass. I still think you're probably going to see the ball in the air 7 to 10 times more this year.
So, DJ, we got two quarterbacks here, and before I decide to flip this thing over and talk about the defense, I want you to have the chance to answer the same thing. Like, do you kind of have a pulse here about what you think we are going to see, Falcons fans are going to see, as far as this offense and how much different it's going to be than we've seen in the last couple of years?
Well, I think Arch did a great job of breaking down exactly with the style of players you have, what it's probably going to look like. And knowing where Zach came from, he wants to move the football around. It's going to be a lot of motion, a lot of shifts, moving guys around, get them in advantageous situations like any other offensive coordinator would do, of course. I had a chance to talk to Tyler Algier today, and I'm talking the same thing. I'm talking about, you guys are going to be able to spread it out. You're going to be able to do this, going to do that. And he kind of leaned at me and said, you know what? We still going to run the rock.
He's like, I go downhill, by the way.
I was like, I know y'all going to do your thing. Last year, y'all ran the ball all good. This year, it seems like it's more open and spread. He said, we still going to run the rock. So I think, like Archie just mentioned, the mix of the running pass is still going to be there. And as we know, Kirk has been really good on play action. He's done that throughout his entire career. This is an offense that I think you can feature a lot of different guys in a lot of different ways, and you are going to put a lot of strain on defenses. And I think that's vertically. I think that's horizontally. This is an offense that when you come watch them, expect everything.
Yeah.
Expect the run game to turn around and pound you. And you have we know we got a physical offensive line. They did that. They showed it last year. But now you bring in a Ray McLeod in the slot. You got a Darnell Mooney who could stretch the field. I seen Rondale Moore the other day in the scrimmage have a nice touchdown catch, versus, A.J. Terrell. This is an offense, and we got Drake, still got Kyle. You got so many Bijan out the backfield.
Yeah.
Like you said, Zach's back here like, what you want, pick your poison. I can kind of adapt to do whatever we need to be, and I think this is going to be an offense that whatever the situation calls for, you can get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I think this is a time of the year where it's so easy to get excited, right? It's easy to get excited because your record is 0-0, right? And you've got new pieces, and everybody does around the NFL. But I think there's probably even a little bit more excitement this year because everybody knows the track record of Kirk Cousins and what he's been able to do at the different spots. And they know that that's an area that this organization has been lacking, at least the last couple of years. And even towards Matt Ryan's last couple of years, it probably wasn't at the level that Matt wanted to play at, right? But to all the things you guys said, solidified offensive line, 2 dynamic backs, tight end that's been around the league for a few years now, one of the top wide receivers in the game, some talented people that have been brought in free agency. There's reason to be excited about what this offense is going to look like when we get on the field in the 2024 season. But let's flip it over and let's talk about the defense, because there are some pieces there that are probably still up in the air. But one thing I do know is that the back end's looking pretty good. And I know the folks at the Final Whistle got a chance to sit down with Jesse Bates. If you didn't get a chance to see that, pull that up on our website or however else you get your podcast material. But you still have arguably the most dynamic safety in the game back there. And he's in his second year. So he's got some chemistry with some of the guys that he's playing with, DJ. What are you looking to see from Jesse Bates and that secondary group this year? Because there are some familiar faces that Falcons fans are going to see back there.
You know, I think it's going to be fun to see this group go and get it, because I think, you know, you have a guy like Mike Hughes out there, D. Offer, all these guys who've played a lot of football for you. But Jesse Bates is absolutely the key, the engine, the gas to this kick to get it going. And we've seen A.J. Terrell play at a high level as well. I think this is a season where you see more guys get their hands on the football. But it's hard to talk about the back end without saying you're excited about the front end, because there's so many guys up front. And me and Arch were talking about this before we came on, about the different guys that you can pair up front, whether it's the interior or on the outside, that give you a chance to be special getting after the quarterback. But I think the back end is just as talented as anywhere else. We saw DeMarco Hellams, the rookie from Alabama, play a lot last year. You come out here now, you watch Richie Grant, and he's acting like he's got a chokehold on it right now. He don't want to let it go. You hear him talk about, I'm just excited to be in this role. I'm excited to be playing in the National Football League. That sounds like a guy who last year stepped back a little bit, may have lost some ground in his spot, and now has a renewed focus coming into this season. So I think when you have a guy who's an all-pro back there in Jesse Bates, you know what he did last year. He demands that kind of energy and effort around him. Talking to Terry Fontenot during practice today, and he was just raving about the type of player, the type of person that he is, not just on the field but off the field. And you know that permeates throughout the entire group when your leader shows you how to do it every single day. So it's going to be fun to see how this group, you know, continues to get better. But I think the next step for this group is getting their hands on the ball more. And not just Jesse. Jesse, we know he did it last year, but see AJ do it. See Mike Hughes do it. See Alford do it. See a lot of, you know, Clark Phillips, a lot of these guys who are just as talented step their game up another level.
Yeah, got to be able to take the football away, and you're right, more than just one person. It doesn't always have to be interceptions, too. Raking the football out after somebody catches the ball, but creating more havoc and turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. And Arch, you know, you feel free to comment on the back end, but I was going to leave the front seven up to you, because you already mentioned Grady Jarrett. You got Ellis coming back. You got Anderson coming back. Landman got a lot of very much needed experience last year. So again, hoping that everybody comes back healthy, but what is kind of your outlook for the front seven on this defense?
Yeah, I think it would mirror a little bit about what we talked about with Zach Robinson's crew on the other side of the ball, and the versatility you've got with the two backs, the receivers that you can hand it to, throw it to, the tight end. All that, you start looking at the front seven defensively that Jimmy Lake's going to deal with. Now all of a sudden you look, you got two fire breathers he drafted that are going to play interior line. You've got one guy coming off the edge. It's a new guy, but you're blending him in with David Onyemata, and you're blending him in with Grady Jarrett. And then you just mentioned the linebacker core. You add a J.T. Bertrand to that kid they drafted out of Notre Dame. And what you thought, well, you kind of wondered where are the linebackers at. All of a sudden, that looks like a position of strength for this football team. And you know they're going to find a guy or two that they're going to be able to plug into that rotation potentially from a linebacker standpoint in camp that's going to blend well. So I just look at it, what Jimmy Lake can do. They're going to operate out of a, you know, pseudo 3-4 style, okay? But we know everybody kind of amoebas in different ways. you have to have some versatility from a defensive standpoint to be able to do that. Brandon Dorlus, we were talking about his arms reach from here to the wall. It's how long he is. Roz talked about the length of some of these players, the power of Rook Ororo. Rook can just rip through guys. So if you turn him loose through a gap and you got Dorlus playing on one side, those guys are going to be coming in spelling the Onyemadas and the Grady Jarretts of the world. And then you've got guys on the outside with Trice and people like that coming. Oh, yeah, by the way, Carter's still here. He can come off the edge. Yeah. You've got a myriad of guys. You may even see Caden Ellis, because of the health of the linebacker situation right now with Troy Anderson and the way Nate Landman came on last year, Ellis is going to be coming off the edge some now.
Yep. Yep.
Now all of a sudden, you talk about mixing and matching and trying to figure out if you're an offensive coordinator. Okay, we got to get Ellis blocked. Where's he at? Now we got to get Grady blocked. Where's he at? And different guys. This Dorlus kid's a problem, but now all of a sudden he's lined out on my tackle. He's not on the guard in the three technique. Mm-hmm. The versatility they have is very similar, Shock, in my opinion, to what you can do offensively with all those weapons. I think Lake has a very similar situation.
Yeah, it's so interesting you use it in that fashion because we always think the versatility and being able to do multiple things goes to like an offensive lineman or saying a back can play in a slot or just come out the backfield. But you got defensive linemen who can go anywhere down the line of scrimmage. That is a problem because you don't know how you're going to count for him. You're talking about Caden Ellis coming out the edge. Are you counting him as an outside back? Are you counting him as a down guy? How are you counting? And as former quarterbacks, we need to know that. Yeah. We need to know how we're counting these guys so we can pick up this pass pro and say who we sliding to. So there are a lot of things that's going to be issues, I think, for offensive coordinators when they have to really game plan for this style of defense where you can have so many guys. And the fact that Art mentioned there's so much depth already at these different spots, that's going to give you a lot of reassurance when it comes to what you can do on that defense side.
I'm kind of speaking to the choir here, but I'm really excited to see Jarrett and Onyemata on the field for an extended period of time this year. I think that's what this organization was planning for last year, and then unfortunately Grady goes down, and you miss one of the more dynamic interior pass rushers in the National Football League, and you don't get to pair them with the new toy that you brought in free agency last year. So hopefully everybody stays healthy. You get a chance to see those guys and the type of havoc they can create up front. But, DJ, I'm going to put you on the spot because this is probably what fans want to hear. One of the biggest discussions among draft night was Michael Penix Jr. being drafted and not necessarily addressing pass rushing. Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot. For all the Falcons fans and the NFL fans that are out there watching and listening and they want to know, where's the Falcons pass rush going to come from? I want you to give your most educated guess from what you've seen so far in training camp, the things that you've seen play out so far in OTAs, and what people can expect that to look like in 2024.
I'll say this. The owner of the Atlanta Falcons just spoke a little while ago while it's Tuesday we're doing this podcast, and the one thing he said to me that stuck out was, well, I'm glad we don't listen to everybody else around the league. I'm glad that we have our own independent thoughts of how we can make this franchise better or how we can make this organization fit the mold that we want. And I think the thing that comes to mind for me is obviously we're not in those rooms all the time listening to how they go about how they want to fill out a team. But if this staff feels as though the players they have in-house can get home, if they have the kind of guys they feel like can get to the quarterback, then I'm going to ride with them. Yeah. If they feel like, okay, I feel like Lorenzo Carter, I like Ebiketie Carter, I like Caden Ellis, they better, come up. We go and draft a Braylon Trice. They feel in this system, with the guys that they drafted or the guys they went out in free agency or the guys they brought back are capable enough, then that's good enough for me. Because obviously everybody has an opinion. I think we all said it as well. Oh, let's go get this guy. I think we should go draft this guy. But not knowing the inner workings as much as they do, it makes sense to me to say, all right, let's go see what happens. And you look at the depth, you look at the guys you have on the roster, and you say, why not? And then you point to, okay, what's around them? If you got a guy like Grady, you got a guy like Onyemata, talk about Dorlus and his long arms and all this kind of stuff, and there are problems on the inside, guess what happens? It frees up one-on-ones on the outside. So it's a combination of, if we got problems up and down this line of scrimmage, there's going to be one-on-one somewhere. And I think it doesn't have just be the edge rushers. It can be the guys from the inside pushing that pocket because, as we know, Mid Archer's been there. There's nothing worse than that dude coming right down the middle of that pocket. Yep. So if you got that issue and now you say, all right, let's double these guys, and now you got some long arm speed guys coming off the edge, they probably going to win their one-on-one most of that time because that's what they do. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how they use these guys. But if they feel like it's already in-house and we feel good about it, then have to go get that number 8 pick on a pass rusher, I'm waiting to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I just think that no question about it. I think, Shock, you hit it right on the head. This is going to be this group defensively, the way they envision them is they envision them as a pack of wolves. Mm-hmm. There's not one, and maybe there's a couple of dominant wolves in the group. Grady's a dominant wolf, and so is probably Jesse Bates or Caden Ellis, but they're going to hunt as a pack.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so when you look up and you got 45 or 50 sacks on the year, which would be a good number. You know, you get up and towards that 60, then you're really getting after it. But you got 45, 50 sacks, and they come from 14 different players or 10 different players. That's the way they want to hunt defensively. They want to hunt as a group and different guys where Caden's outside, Troy Anderson blitzes through the middle, Dorless gets his as a young guy. All of a sudden, here comes Grady. There's a lot of guys, and that's what I'm looking for from this defense is for them to hunt as a pack and not necessarily having Arnold Ebiketie have 16 sacks. That'd be great if he did.
Yep.
But I'm okay if he has 8, and when you look over on the other side, and Braylon Trice has 8, and Dorless has 5, and Grady has 6.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking for, and I think that's what they envision this defense. They envision them to hunt as a pack.
Yes.
Right. How easy is it if you got just a J.J. Watt or you just got a Max Crosby or you got one guy who you know is that guy?
Yeah.
I can slide. I can chip. I can do all these things. I know where that guy's going to be. I know who is the problem. Well, to Archer's point, if I got 7, 8 guys who are a problem, what am I going to do?
Yep.
And I think that's a good point is if you got so many different guys who can get to the quarterback that's making an issue, it's hard for an offensive coordinator to say, all right, let's key in on one guy, and if we shut him down, then we got a chance to win the ball game. But you can't shut all of those guys down. So I like the hunting as a pack.
Started this conversation with the talk of not addressing pass rushing with the top 10 pick. I would be remiss if we did not discuss our top 10 pick. I got 2 quarterbacks in the room. So we talked about it after Michael Penix Jr. was drafted. DJ, I want to come to you and say, what do you think the role this year looks like for our top 10 pick? You know, Coach Ra came out and said, as an organization, we made the determination that quarterback is not going to be an issue for us in the near future, okay? So that's the reason why they went and got him. So what's the role going to look like for Michael Penix Jr. this year?
I got 2 things. First one is become the biggest sponge that you could ever be in your entire life. You got a guy who is going to his 13th year in the NFL. Last year, in 8 games, had over 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns. By the way, the Falcons had 17 total all year last year. And you're going to have this guy sitting next to you every single day who will absolutely show you the way. So become that sponge day in and day out. Second part about this is every day that you step into this building, every day that you prepare like that next snap could be yours.
Yep.
And if you go and attack it in that manner, you can't tell me that he won't take it to the field and be the best player that they already know he was. To be that excited about a guy. We heard Raw, we heard Terry, we heard everybody talk about how they went out to Washington and his wind is howling and this guy impressed him more than anything. To have a guy come in and have the ability to be able to sit behind a guy like Kirk Cousins, a true professional, he has to be the ultimate sponge. Now, one thing that I saw was pretty cool that they're doing in camp now is Kirk Cousins as well as Michael Penix have a camera on the top of their helmet. And you think, oh, man, this is cool. Yeah, they get to see exactly where their head is, but there's so many other nuances to it. I heard Michael Penix talk about, I get a chance to hear how Kirk Cousins calls plays in the huddle. I can see how he commands it. I can see what he's looking at. There's so many things that he can take in that me and Arch never had a chance to see.
Right.
We never had a camera to be able to see the guy in front of us, how he operates in the huddle, what he says, how he talks, how he communicates. All these things are so good that he can watch it and learn from. And I think he's already going to be ahead of the schedule because of what he's done. And he's been phenomenal already in practice. You can see the demeanor that he has. And I think the fact that he's got so many guys around him that's been there and done it. You talk about how many quarterback coaches that are already on this roster that could absolutely help him. And then you got a guy who has been there and done it. He's in probably one of the best positions, I think, of a quarterback coming into the league.
I mean, I can't imagine, like, with the camera on the helmet, I'm sure there's probably some of this going on. Might not be the best viewing experience, but to your point, Shock, like the fact that if you're really going to be that sponge and you're Michael Penix and you're watching the replay of this stuff on Kirk's helmet and, like, you see him do one of these numbers and you can ask him, like, hey, what were you looking at right there? You talk about invaluable experience right there. Then Kirk could say, oh, well, that peek over there, I was trying to get the outside linebacker to show his hand, move one step to the right to open up the hole for the slant right behind him. Yeah. I mean, you talk about an aha moment right there. You just saw it all, like, with your own eyes, and then you're able to come back. Like before, Arch, we would have to just have those conversations. And then it's like, oh, if it happens again, I'll let you know if it happens again.
And right? here's the other part of that attention to detail that I love that this organization done. And Rise talked about it. They got 2 video boards out there. Arch, we've seen them the last few days, and it instantly gives you what the last play was. Quick replay of it. Let's just say something happens with Kirk and Zach Robinson and Michael Penix standing right here, and they can go through it right now on the field and learn it as opposed to going back into the meeting room and you're like, dang, what was that play again? I think it was in team. It was like the 4th play. And they can learn it right then and right now. So the attention to detail, to be able to learn it on the spot, huge.
Yeah, it is a really cool dimension they've added. It's brand new this year. They got a gigantic jumbo board out there that replays, as Shock said, the play that they just ran. You can be going jogging back the huddle looking to see, hey, did I stem that guy the right way? Did I get where I was supposed to get to? Did I get the stretch? Whatever. It is an unbelievable teaching tool. They have the ability to rewind it right there if they want to. If they want to slow practice down and take a look at something. So the real-time learning, Shock hit it out of the ballpark on that. And as far as Michael Penix and what he should be doing, what we need to do is just re-rack what Shock just said and play it for him because Shock, that is exactly what he should be doing. No question about it.
Yeah. You guys talked a little bit about the video board. Like I'm just starting to think with every, like, you think as a country, as a world, if you will, like AI has become really huge, right? Yeah. I'm just starting to think at like where technology is going to go for the National Football League, right? Like all of the next, like if we're sitting here in 5 years, Lord willing, and we're talking about the things that I can't even imagine some of the technology that they're going to be able to do to better prepare these guys to get better, to get ready to play, to learn. I mean, far beyond anything that we had back when we were playing. Don't want to sit here and say the old guys. Last conversation here is anything that you guys have seen so far through training camp, and if you haven't, that's okay, but from a name or two, like a free agent, a rookie, or somebody else that has caught your eye that you think can make a difference. And I'll start with you on this one, Arch. Somebody, it can't be a Grady Jarrett, it can't be Jesse Bates, it can't be Drake London. It's got to be somebody else a little bit less heard of.
Well, first of all, and I'm going to take someone we've heard of, in your fantasy draft, it's coming up probably in the next month or so prior to the regular season. If you don't draft Kyle Pitts on your team, you are an idiot. Kyle Pitts is going to have a monster season. Get ready. I mean, hopefully there was a lot of people, that'll shock you and I were at Scheckinger High School, and thanks to those people out there, great hosts and allowing us to come out there. The Gwinnett County Schools, really cool. Kyle Pitts went off out there the other day. I mean, catching the ball on the sideline, going over the top of people. He's playing with that purpose, that guy you saw as a rookie. Well, why not? The guy that was kind of his quarterback his rookie year just walked back through the door with younger legs and all that. And Matt Ryan is now Kirk Cousins. That's who he's got. So that would be the first thing that I would say is don't be surprised if that guy has a monster year. In fact, I'm predicting that he has a gigantic season. As far as a guy off the kind of off the main highway a little bit. How about Smith Williams, a young man, James Smith Williams. We acquired James Smith Williams in free agency from the Washington Commanders. Had some mixed reviews there, was banged up some. He has looked really good in camp. I mean, stout on the perimeter. He's going to play kind of a stand-up linebacker, larger size linebacker. But he's had some really good moments against the run and shown some prowess against the pass as well. I think he's going to be a nice mix to that, and I think that was kind of a quiet acquisition that he's got play time in the National Football League. He's had some success in the league, played his college ball at NC State. I think this guy has a chance to maybe make a difference.
How about you, Shock?
I think one of the three receivers, I think Ray McCloud's been a guy that's kind of stuck out to me a little bit. You watch some of the things that he can do within this offense. And you're talking about just finding extra guys to get the ball in space. We know what Bijan can do in space. We know what, you're trying to feature Kyle. I think he's going to be the jack of a trade where you get him probably, 4 or 5 touches a ball game or something, and one of those probably goes to the house, or he picks up a big first down, or he breaks a couple tackles, whatever it may be. I think he's going to be the guy that inside that slot area, a guy that you can find creative ways to get the football to him, whether it's on a bubble screen or maybe it's, quick little option routes or something. But one of those kind of guys that when they're doubling all those other guys, he's going to find a way to go win. So I'm looking forward to seeing, out of the 3 we brought in, Rondale Moore, I think Darnell Mooney's going to be awesome, going to be a guy that absolutely stretches the field. But Ray on the inside is a guy that you got to be looking forward to seeing how they value him in this offense.
Yeah, I mean it kind of has to happen, right, fellas? Like I think opposing defenses that are game planning for Atlanta in years past would say can't be beat by Drake London, can't be beat by Kyle Pitts, and then last year they had to say, all right, this Bijan Robinson's kind of like a wide receiver, right? But they've got to have that wide receiver threat that's going to take some pressure off to let Drake London do what Drake London can do, because we've seen flashes, we've seen glimpses of what the mismatches that he can create. But if you can always roll a safety over top because you're not necessarily worried that somebody on the backside is going to be able to beat you, or there's not been somebody that's proven in a 2-man game that's going to run a combination route with Drake and they're going to make a defense pay, they're going to sit on him. So that's what this offense needs. I'm going to give you guys one name. You mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to go with Ruka Rororo for a couple of reasons. When you get drafted and the owner is talking to you and you're basically not even paying attention, you're just telling him, let's go. Like, I want to see the energy and the passion that we saw on draft night from him coming up through the middle on the defense, right? Very well schooled, had a year or 2 with Brent Venables at Clemson. One of my opinion, one of the better defensive coordinators in college football. The guy's got the passion. He's got the power, as you talked about. We need more guys creating havoc on the defense. That's somebody that I'm interested to see if they can find the role for him. And when he gets the opportunity, that passion that we saw from you on draft night, I want to see it from snap to whistle.
Art, you can't go Aurora every time, right? I mean,
I'm going to call him the Big O a lot.
The Big O.
The Big O.
I like that. Okay.
I was going to call. I was hoping they would give him they gave him 98. I was hoping they'd give him 99 and call him Agent 99. Agent 98 just doesn't have the same feel to it. I might do that a little bit. I told him I was going to call him the Big O. He goes, that's great. That's great.
For those that don't
we'll
know,
sprinkle in an Aurora from time to time.
For those that are unaware, we got 3 broadcasters that call games up here, and sometimes the last names that are challenging are a nightmare, because when you're trying to call something full speed in action and you're just trying to rip a last name off, and then all of a sudden you just start stumbling, it just like kills the whole action of you trying. And so Dave is going to have to mention his name
I guarantee you, all 3 of us have probably been sitting in your car going, Rook, Aurora.
Oh, no doubt.
Aurora.
And in your car, it seems so easy.
Yeah,
right?
and then you start thinking,
you
how
have
do
to
you
do it live and in person. That's when you're like, oh, man.
But then when you're trying to say that he comes off the hip of David Onyemata, and then you're trying to say Onyemata and Rororo together. I'm telling you, it's a recipe for Big O. It's a Big O, baby.
Big O, let's go.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Hopefully we gave you a little bit of refresher, gave you a little bit of excitement as we are now in training camp, and it's just think about some of the things that we got coming down the line. We got joint practices, we got preseason games coming up, and that's when position battles start coming a little bit more clear. Start figuring out who's going to be on the field. And then you won't really get a chance to see what this offense is going to look like, as Arch told us, until we get to the first regular season game. But that's okay. We want to keep a little bit of that stuff to ourselves. A little bit tights to the vest, and then when we get to opening weekend, we can let it go.
Let's go.
All right. That's DJ Shockley. It's Dave Archer. We are back. I'm Derek Rackley. So happy to be back here to talk about some NFL football and some Atlanta Falcons. Hopefully we're back here on a weekly basis, and if so, we plan to bring it for you each and every week. Thanks so much, everybody.